Our next speaker is Tanya Orlik. What reading really is. So now, Tanya, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can see you, I can hear you. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. I was sitting in a cafe in Khmelnytsky, which is in Western Ukraine, and I noticed a reading lesson happening at the next table. I understood that this was a reading lesson thanks to the classic reading face done by the 4-year-old boy. Suddenly, his torture were interrupted. An air raid siren went off, telling everyone to go to the shelter. And all the people in the cafe expressed a range of reactions. Some were saying the last sad goodbyes to their cheesecakes. Some were swearing quietly, figgity. But this little boy's face lit up. He went, yes, finally, the nightmare is over. And I found this so funny because we are all these boys sometimes. To change, to go through the deliberate pain of mastering a new skill is way scarier than any external change. External change is not 100% guaranteed. A rocket might hit your cafe or might not. A big tech trend might turn out to be a short-lived craze. But the pain from changing yourself is very much guaranteed and real. My name is Tanya Orlik. I am a reading coach, and for the past 10 years, I have been helping people and companies go gentle into that good change and use reading as a perfect everyday tool for it. You see, reading is a very complex cognitive process. We often forget the pain that it took us to learn reading. There is nothing natural about the process of decoding symbols and staying focused for a long time. And because our brain seems to revel in the consistent, deliberate struggle, reading books is generously rewarded. Today, we will not talk about the more obvious reading benefits, such as reading makes you smarter, reading makes you less stressed, or readers live 2 years longer, which is actually cool. But in my work with 150 companies, I have noticed that leaders who are known to be passionate readers are described as more open, empathetic, and more welcome to new ideas. According to the poll conducted by the Nordic Business Forum, these are the same traits that make leaders capable of navigating change. Reading makes you a better speaker. Reading makes you appear more trustworthy. And reading strengthens your confidence. My favorite story about reading and confidence is the story of Vincent van Gogh. When he was a boy, his mom loved drawing and she was very supportive. Vincent wanted to draw a cat for her, but he didn't like the painting. He threw a tantrum, threw the drawing away, and said that he's never going to draw again. He went to a fancy school, which was located in the former king's castle. His art teacher turned out to be a celebrity who was so effective in promoting arts that the government made art part of the public school program. The teacher was so innovative in his approaches that he paid a lot of attention to every student in class, which was very rare in the 19th century. But Vincent was not impressed. Later, he would write that nobody ever has introduced him to the pleasures of drawing. At 15, he quit school. He just hung around for a year and then started working for his uncle's business, selling the artworks. By 20, Vincent was already an accomplished salesman. At 22, he was relocated to Paris, and he just went to work every day, passing by some of the greatest artists of the time, staying completely untouched by them. At 27, he had a career crisis. He couldn't find himself. He tried working as a missionary, as a book assistant, as a teacher assistant. He asked everyone for advice. His brother thought that Vincent should be a carpenter. His sister thought that he would make a good baker. But then Vincent finally met a special someone. He stumbled upon a book called The ABCs to Drawing. And he was so profoundly impacted by it. He wrote in a letter, finally, somebody believes in me, much to the surprise of his supportive family, friends, teachers, and everyone who has insisted that he should try himself in the arts. Books do make very good mentors because we read them with our own voice and we believe them more. As we boil in the book, we have a chance of changing ourselves deeply. And this is the reason why books are very important in the fight for the equal rights and opportunities, not because of the information they share, but because reading is the practice for the theory of mind skills, and they let a reader live through experiences, thoughts, and emotions that might be very different from the one that he or she usually experiences. If reading is so great, why don't we do it more? I like to think of reading as a relationship. And the deadliest thing for a relationship, the start of any relationship, is internal pressure. We don't just grab any person we meet and feel obliged to spend 50 hours with them, reading them cover to cover. There are people that we meet for a coffee update once a year. There are people that we spend a lot of time, perhaps a lifetime with. And there are people that just share one thought, one moment with us, but they might impact our life profoundly. It's the same with books. The relationships with books are as diverse as relationships with people. It is not a one-way monologue. It is a communication, and there is a lot of serendipity to it. My number one advice for personal reading would be let go of any stress and try to design the process. Think of the time, the place, the reading buddies, perhaps even the reading uniform. If you want to foster a reading culture in your family, try to create an abundance of books laying around and think of the time and rituals around reading. It is very similar about the process of fostering the healthy eating culture in your family when you try to put vegetables and fruit all around the kitchen in the hope that the children would reach out for the snack. As a manager, you should think of designing a reading culture. A lot of the times I see passionate business leaders pushing their favorite book, or just like the last impressive book, to everyone on the team without thinking of the reading culture. To be frank, I like the reading clubs much more than the book clubs. Reading clubs are just places for a shared reading experience where you can spend the time reading a book, not just talking about the book. And as a manager, you can think of the whys for reading. What do you read for as a team? You can pick mental health, you can pick diversity and inclusion, culture awareness, or a more particular cause, such as, for example, we are reading to negotiate better. One example of a great reading program is Microsoft. When Satya Nadella became the CEO of Microsoft in 2014, Microsoft was known for a pretty toxic culture. So one of Satya's first acts as a CEO was launching a reading program for the top executives in the company. And the very existence of the reading program was much more important than what they were reading. It was sending signals to the entire team and strengthening the employer brand. As one of the Microsoft employees put it, a jerk does not hold a book, and the leaders became viewed as much more open and approachable for their teams. Another great example is Patagonia, who is very consistent in their support of the reading programs and creating a book abundance, a book stipends for their employees. They believe that reading is very powerful at creating a space for a safe yet meaningful connection. Reading is universal and is enjoyed by people of all ages, careers, nations, genders. They focus on the books about environmentalism, adventures, and outdoors, and they believe that connection with like-minded people sparks change. Another thing that is necessary for change is faith that change is worth the effort and the curiosity to see the outcome. The boy from the beginning of our story is now an avid reader. He did use connection for this because he used to read to his dog a lot, who was very supportive in his efforts. But he grew passionate about reading when he understood that books hold a lot of information about his biggest passion, the dinosaurs. And this boy unraveled the biggest secret of reading and change. It is that the world is full of wonders that are waiting for our senses to grow sharper.
Tanya, thank you so much. I could see the good reading environment with lots and lots of books in front of my eyes, so thank you so much. We have a question from the jury, so Preet, please.
Yes, thank you, Tanya, for a great presentation and interesting facts about reading as well. I wanted to ask about the culture of reading that is now emerging. It's actually sort of listening to books or audiobooks. You mentioned that one of the benefits of reading is that you read with your own voice. What are we losing when we go for audiobooks instead of actual books?
Mm-hmm.
Do we get the same benefits?
That's a great question. Actually, when we read, I mentioned that reading makes you a better speaker, and that's because the same muscle groups work when we read as when we speak. And we also tend to memorize the vocabulary much better when we read. And the very different process works when we listen to audiobooks. So if you want to work on your vocabulary, to become a better speaker, to memorize better, probably a go-to would be the conventional reading. But I recognize that a lot of people listen to audiobooks because that's the way for them to get more content, for example, when they're walking around or driving the car. So it's also a valid option.
Thank you. And I shall aim to do more paper reading for the year's benefits.
Tanya, thank you so much.
Thank you.